everyone, my name is Danny and I am an abstract mixed media artist. I've been a full-time artist for 2 years now, and I recently moved to New York City from DC, and I'm in the process of taking my art career to the next level. My goal is to use the Artist Way book by Julia Cameron to get my life together. Today I want to chat about week 3 of the Artist Way course, and while I'm chatting, I also want to show you guys the process of making this 20-inch circle mosaic. In this chapter, the author discusses synchronicities. The official definition of synchronicities is the coincidental occurrence of events, and especially psychic events, that seem related but are not explained by conventional mechanisms of causality, used especially in the psychology of Carl Jung. Started my artist journey, I noticed a lot of small coincidences. I mean, there were multiple moments where I felt very freaked out, and I actually shared them with my mom, and she equally was freaked out because there were so many moments where it was like, holy shit, like how did that happen? There were a few moments that just had me like, they made me shiver a little bit. And I always say to myself when they happen now, where it's like, it makes my eyes kind of like tear up, where like something happens that just is so kind of creepy, but also like beautiful and like crazy, where it just kind of sends shivers up your spine. You're just like, whoa, that's weird. Like when you think something or you put something down, you write it in your journal, and then you see it in your physical reality, which to me is manifestation. But I think it all starts with synchronicities, or those coincidences that we find creepy just intrinsically, but we can't, it's not enough like evidence for us to really say that we're doing magic or anything. Just starting out on my artist journey, there were a few moments that started my belief in this whole manifestation process. One of which was when I was trying to figure out, how do you make a living doing art? Like, how do you do that? And I started writing that in my journal and just thinking about it and reading about it. And I just didn't understand, like, you know, do you just sell work? And I even did the math to see how much work I would have to sell at the price I was currently selling, and it just wasn't like physically possible for me to make that much work, let alone sell that much work. And so I remember asking this question to the universe, and I started getting opportunities. I remember one person was like, hey Danny, like, have you ever thought about teaching classes? Have you ever thought about reaching out to this company specifically and teaching classes? And so I was like, no, I really haven't ever heard of them actually. And so I reached out to that company, and they get back to me within hours saying, oh yeah, we'd love to have you, like, feel free to apply. And you know, you could easily say, Danny, that's not a coincidence, that is not a synchronicity, that is not magic, that is literally just life. But that's just one of hundreds, I think at this point, of moments where it just was like, I put something out in the universe, I put out a thought, I put out a desire, and it came back to me like a boomerang, you know? Okay, so I just remembered another one. Another one was when I wanted a studio. I really wanted an art studio, and I kept putting out that desire because I was working in my apartment at this point, which had carpet, mind you, and I'm making glass work, right? So I'm constantly cutting myself. I'm constantly getting little nicks in my fingers, finding little shards of glass in my bed. I'm finding them in the living room. I feel guilty because I have roommates, and I'm like, it's time to get out of the house, right? I can't afford this at all. Like, I cannot afford an art studio, but I know that I need one. So I start looking and Googling art studios, and I find one called 52 O Street, and I go, I like set up an appointment. I'm like, do you have anything? Like, I'd really like something. He's like, no, we don't have anything. A couple months go by, I ask him again. I say, you know, just want to check in. Maybe something's changed and you have something. He said, actually, we do have something. It's a bit out of your price range. Unfortunately, a smaller space just got swooped up, but like, if you'd like to come look, come look. I go, I look at the place, and I'm just like, this is beautiful. Like, it's a perfect size, it's huge. It doesn't have any windows, so that's a bummer, but it's super bright, and it just seems like it would be a great fit for me. And he gives me the price, and of course I cannot afford this studio. Like, you know, I was making pretty good money, I would say, for my first job, and I wasn't like broke or anything, but I had enough to cover my bills, put a tiny bit away in savings, and pay for my loans and things. Like, I didn't have a lot of extra, so it definitely didn't have like 700, 800 some dollars extra. And so, you know, I say, no, sorry, I can't do it. A month goes, I think it was like a couple more months go by. I reach out again, I say, hey, do you have anything now? Because I've already reached out to other spaces and nothing's available. Nothing's available in my price range, plus nothing's really available. So I reach out again, and he's like, well, we have the same place. I tell my dad about it. He's like, why don't you try negotiating the price? So I do. I get the price down like 200 some dollars, and I just say, you know what? I got a certain amount of money in my savings, and I think that this is a worthy investment for me. And so I decide to do it. I tell the manager of the studio space that I'm gonna do it, and he signs me up. He says I can give you the keys at the end of the month, and I'm in there. Now, mind you, I'm freaking out a little bit because I'm excited, but I'm also like, I can't afford this past 6 months. Like, I legitimately have 6 months worth of rent if I use all of my savings, and I have nothing else. And I'm not selling much work at this point. I'm selling maybe a small $70, $80 piece once in a blue moon, right? I think at this point I had sold one $300 piece, and that was very exciting. But I did not have enough to cover the rent. So I was kind of freaking out, but I was like, you know what? This step will elevate my art. Even if it's only for 6 months, I think it will still be a worthy investment. And the manager of the studio told me, like, as long as you give me a month's heads up, you can be out of there, no problem. So I moved my stuff into the studio. I'm super excited about it. I set everything up. I start making work. And this is when I decide to start teaching classes. So I get this opportunity to start teaching classes. That's a way for me to make money. And I put up my first class. I don't know if anyone's gonna sign up. I'm nervous as heck. And I sell out. My first class sells out immediately. And the person who's putting on the classes, she asked me, would you like to put on a second class? Would you like to do a back-to-back class? And I say, sure, that sounds good. And I sell out that one as well. So within selling out, I have made 1 month's rent. Done. So I'm like, okay, like I did it. Like I have another month. Now I'm at 7 months, right? Worst case scenario, if I don't bring in any other money, I have 7 months. I start teaching more regularly, and I'm able to now have enough money to last me like 9 months at this point. And at that mark, I actually get a new job, which I have been applying to new jobs. I get a new full-time job that pays significantly more, which is exciting. And now I don't really have to worry about making enough. Again, you don't have to see this as a coincidence. I know that there can be a lot of resistance when these kind of things start happening in your life. I look at this moment in my life and I can see the fact that I put a desire out there. I put out a want. I made a statement in the universe, and the universe realigned to make that statement true. About that, I want to be able to be an artist who can have a studio. I want to be able to afford the studio, and things realigned so that that reality was true. To me, manifestation is a lot about you taking the step and saying what you want, you deciding what the what is, and then the universe parting the seas and creating the how. Herman talks a little bit about synchronicities and being a kind of co-creator with the universe. In that, creating your dream life is a lot of you doing something and then the universe doing something back, right? You taking 1 or 2 steps and then them taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps, right? It's a teamwork activity. It's a call and response activity. It encourages you to just give it a try. Maybe try listing something you want. Maybe try putting something out in the universe, and then taking that first physical action, that first step in that first actual step, and then just seeing what happens, right? Put it out there what you want, do something about it, and then just sit back and see if something pops up in your life that makes that thing easier. One thing that I want to note that I think is very important is that this is true when you are in alignment with the universe. Now, if you're trying to manifest or create something in the universe that is negative or not the right thing for you, you'll actually probably notice the opposite happening, right? You'll notice a lot of resistance. If you notice that you're taking steps in a certain direction and you're just getting hit with wall after wall, then maybe that's not the right path, and I would take a second to maybe listen to that. I recommend taking this step, seeing what happens, seeing if any synchronicities or coincidences pop up in your life, and then being vulnerable and open enough to take advantage of those opportunities. A lot of the artist journey is about being open to the possibilities, and then it's a lot of saying yes to the next step. Me, my artist journey was a spiritual journey because it did teach me a lot about manifestation. It taught me a lot about how I am connected to the universe and I'm connected to everyone around me. And to a lot of people, that can sound very silly, but when you've experienced a certain amount of coincidences or synchronicities, you can't help but feel this way. And I believe that Julia Cameron talks so much about God, she talks about spirit so much because she has experienced it herself. And a lot of artists have also experienced this. For me, week 3 was a lot about trying to figure out the what for me. At this point in my life, I know the power of manifestation. I have experienced insane levels of synchronicities. Recently, I've been asking myself this question of what is one thing that if it could happen tomorrow would really change the game for you, right? And I wrote down in my journal that if I could get a big sale, something that was 30 by 40 inches or bigger, soon, that would be a game changer for me. And literally within weeks, I get an email that says, "Hey Danny, we have someone interested in 2 of your works." At this point in my artist journey, I'm aware that I'm able to manifest faster. I put so many seeds out in the universe, and I also have a very clear desire that when I ask for something and I decide on a want, it is easier for me to have a realignment show up in my physical reality. But in the beginning, it was a lot of trusting the process and listening to the messages that I was getting back, right? Whether this was the right path or whether it wasn't. And I think knowing the what of what you want is also something that takes a little bit of trial and error. You're not always gonna know what you want just because you sat down and thought about it. Some of it's gonna take actually doing it and then be like, ooh, this works, this doesn't work, this is not for me, this is definitely for me, right? For me, this week was a lot of figuring out what I want, and because I had such a bad experience with the art market, I personally think that art markets are maybe not the path for me as an artist, but I do feel like something like YouTube is for me. I posted my recent videos and I got a couple comments on the manifestation one, and that just made me so excited because manifestation and my spiritual journey through art is such a special thing to me, and it's something that I don't always love to talk about because people do have such specific feelings on it, but I have just had so many amazing things happen to me in my life that I cannot help but want to encourage other people to also start their artist journey and their spiritual journey. I'm gonna wrap up the video here. I'll see you guys next week with week 4. Also, please subscribe. If you can subscribe to my channel, that would really help me, and I would also really love it if you left a like on this video. Bye, see you next week.